let's rank the top 10 players on the 49ers. I think this is a fun exercise to do right before OTAs, a sort of way to kick off the season. And no person's list is going to be the same. We might approach it differently. I'm not really looking at this as a career achievement list. I'm sort of looking at this as like right now, who do I expect to have the best seasons coming up in 2025 and why? So maybe there's a little bit of projection on my list. You guys can do it however you want to do it. And maybe Chase goes first since Ashley went first last time.
Yeah, I can go first here. And again, I think it's important to emphasize who are the best players right now, because some of the players who are marquee guys on this Niners team, they missed some time last year. And so I'm thinking more about what's relevant and how these players have played of late, how I think they're going to play in 2025. So at number one for me is Fred Warner. And I think that's an easy choice for me personally, just because he's one of the best overall players in the NFL. He's one of the best defenders in football. He's the off-ball linebacker champion at that position, because I don't think anybody really comes close to him outside of maybe Roquan Smith. And he's been to 3 straight first-team All-Pro honors. And I just think that with the way that he impacts the game against the run, against the pass, leadership, being a captain, being the backbone of that Niners defense, he's the best player on this team. And I also, when I was putting together this list, I'm thinking, how would the team fare if that player were not on it? That's how I oftentimes think about MVP races in all of the major sports, because if you take that player off that team, how does that team do? I think the Niners defense would be bad without Fred Warner. So he's number one on my list. Number two, I'm going to go with George Kittle. And it starts to get close here, but my thought process here is that Kittle is the best all-around tight end in the game. Some people want to say Brock Bowers is the best tight end. That's fine. I don't think he blocks to the level that George Kittle does. Back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he was a first-team All-Pro at his position 2 years ago. And if you look at his numbers recently with what he's done with Brock Purdy, his touchdown numbers are terrific. I think he might have 24 touchdowns in like 35 games since Purdy came in 2022. And number three, Nick Bosa. And I think some people are sleeping on how good Bosa is. Oftentimes, I sometimes look at sack numbers like wins and losses for a pitcher. I don't think it tells a full story for how good that player is. And I know that Bosa's sack numbers have gone down since he won Defensive Player of the Year. But think about that Seattle game at home. Nick Bosa and the defense were dominating. Bosa was playing really well. You take him off the field, Niners sucked. And the Seahawks really did whatever they wanted to with that comeback effort. That was the Geno Smith touchdown run game. And I think Bosa is just a dynamite defensive player who is still one of the top edge rushers in the game at a position that's extremely deep. Number four is Trent Williams. Only played 10 games last year. If he was healthy, he might be number one on this list. He probably has the best Hall of Fame case among all players on this list. But last year, injured, and when he was on the field, he didn't play all that well, but he's still so dominant and one of the top offensive tackles in the game, a first-team All-Pro 2 years ago. So I went with him at number four. Number five, this might surprise some people, Brock Purdy. Top 10 quarterback in the game since he's entered the league in 2022. And given the importance of the quarterback spot, I'm going to put him there. And I also think his numbers and the overall offensive numbers last year, a lot of those numbers were top 5, top 10. So I think he's worthy of that. Number 6, Christian McCaffrey, a little bit risky, but 2 years ago, he was the offensive player of the year. That name, of course, all hinges on how healthy he is in 2025, but he's the engine that makes this Niners offense go. Number 7, Deommodore Lenoir, because I thought last year he played at a Pro Bowl, borderline all-pro level, and whether you put him in the slot or out wide, he's so good. He's given up 1 touchdown the last 3 years. Number 8, Brandon Ayuk.
It's a great stat.
All-pro. Yeah, it's one touchdown 3 years when you get targeted a lot and you have to play inside, outside, which isn't easy. Like, Lenoir is one of the most slept-on corners in the game, in my opinion. Number 8, Brandon Ayuk. Look, tore the 3 ligaments in his knee. Stock is down. When he was on the field last year, he wasn't good, but he was an all-pro at a loaded position just 2 years ago. And he was like the second highest graded wide receiver, according to Pro Football Focus, in football. And so if he's healthy and he can get close to his 2023 form, I think he's a top 10 player on this team. At number 9 is Jawan Jennings, career year last year. And I think he's the epitome of what the Niners are about. Play with swagger, toughness, be a dog, willing to make sacrifices for your teammates. And I think he's the most respected receiver in that room. And then at number 10 is a guy who was excellent last year as a rookie, and he was one of the top offensive linemen drafted last year, and that's Dominic Pooney. So those are my top 10 Niners right now, and I'm sure your lists are going to be a lot different, but those are the reasons why.
I like the reasons, though. Right. I don't mind disagreeing on the. I just like hearing why you differentiate players. That was very interesting and well done. Thank you, Chase.
Yeah. And that's an exercise where we could do like a very long show on that, but like, yeah, trying to elaborate on it concisely. That's the top 10 list I came up with. And I kind of had to switch a couple of players from time to time, but I'm comfortable with that list.
It's hard to make a list because you're obviously doing some projections, especially with the injuries that a lot of these players have. So like taking into account, okay, how do you think they're going to perform this year? But then what is their history? So I thought you did a really good job, Chase.
Appreciate
Are you going to go next, Grant?
You go. You're up.
Oh, you wanna end with a bang. I see.
Yeah.
I agree with Chase. I put Fred Warner as number 1. I think of him as the quarterback of the defense. He really runs that side of the game. His leadership, how he plays. He played through injury last year, still played like a top linebacker in the NFL, even through injury. It's his first I think he's missed one game since he was drafted in 2018. His leadership, I think, is why I put him as number 1, because I was toying between Fred Warner and Kittle. And I think both are hugely impactful on the field. They're all pro players for a reason. They're top of their position for a reason. But I think when it comes to Fred Warner, he's like, if you're the team, if you're the organization, he's exactly the type of player you want. He's such a model citizen outside of the game of football. And he often on his own podcast has talked about how he's coached up Jair Brown and kind of like assisted in his sleep regimen to make sure that he's ready to go on game days. He talked about how on the bye week, he doesn't travel because he wants to use that time to rehab and like, yes, a little bit step away, like mentally to clear his head, but he doesn't want to get all the way out of it. It's not the off season him. And that's kind of how I made my distinction, is mostly the off the field actions that these two players have, because I was really going back and forth with Kittle and Fred Warner. And Kittle, during the bye week, he'll go and he'll party and have fun, and that could be really necessary for him to then come back, lock in for the rest of the season, lock in for a playoff run. But I think there's just something so committed about Fred Warner that it's so extremely impressive to watch. Like it's not enough for him to work hard to be great. He wants to be great in his bones. He's talked about how the only thing left for him is to win a Super Bowl and be a part of making a team around him better. Also, when it comes to contracts, like there's so much drama that was happening with everyone with their contracts. Fred Warner, he was talking like right before at his football camp. Jennifer Lee Chan went there and asked him, like, how do you feel about the contracts? You look at George Kittle, for example. You look at Debo. You look at Brandon Ayuk. They kind of made a little bit of a stink. And I'm not downing the fact that they had to do that. But Fred Warner was like, man, I get paid enough. I trust the front office. I think they're going to take care of me. I want to help take care of them. Like, I want to stick to football. Just love that.
He's like a once in a generation leader and football player.
Yes. So
okay,
number two is Kittle, because I think, top of his position. I think the impact he makes on this team, particularly, also the fact that Shanahan doesn't like to invest in the offensive line. They use Kittle as a pseudo, offensive lineman when they need him to. He's pivotal to their run game. And when they do get him involved in the pass game, which I hope that they do more this year with the acquisition of Luke Farrell, who's more of a blocking tight end, when they've targeted him in the red zone last year and years prior, they've really struggled in that red zone. When they target Kittle, he has such a big body, such a large wingspan. He can really get the ball and he can plow through other players. He's not getting stopped. I think he's just so physically imposing, and maybe mindset wise, he's different than Fred Warner, who's more serious. But I also imagine that there's something to the goofiness and to the lightheartedness that he brings, and I imagine that that is also really helpful as a leader on this team. And when you're down stressed at the very end of the fourth quarter and you need to come back, and George Kittle's just pumping you up. I think about him pumping Jake Moody up when Debo was trying to hit him.
Number 3.
So then number 3, I have Trent. I know that Trent suffered with injuries. I think going into this year, if the 49ers are going to be successful, that offensive line has to hold up for Brock Purdy, has to hold up for Christian McCaffrey, especially if he's still dealing with that injury and that speed issue. The offensive line is going to be even more important. So I think Trent Williams, future Hall of Famer, he needs to be a top 5 player on this team. And I think when healthy, he's top 3. Then I have Christian McCaffrey, similar. When the 49ers solved their red zone issues in 2023, it was because they went and got Christian McCaffrey. They were struggling before him with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they kind of turned their entire season around using him as a key to confusing defenses. Whenever defensive coordinators are asked, how are you going to stop the 49ers? They talk about Christian McCaffrey before they talk about anyone else. I'm going to listen to opposing defensive coordinators and say Christian McCaffrey's important, even coming off this injury. Supposedly he's healthy. I hope that he's utilized in a better way, but he should be important. Then I have Nick Bosa. I think with the acquisition of these younger guys who are number 5, Nick Bosa. Is that what you're saying? That's when I have Nick Bosa. When I think about the fact that they went out and got a lot of run stoppers, I think, okay, this is going to allow Nick Bosa to be even more productive because he can really narrow in on what he is, best at. And he has other people around him that are hopefully going to be able to corral him and allow him to get more sacks and maybe have those numbers go back up because he's going to have more people on that line that are going to assist him in what he needs to do. So I think Nick Bosa, when he's locked in, when he's motivated, very important on this team. That's when I have Brock Purdy. I know it's a little bit high, but when he can execute, when he can make accurate decisions and give, his offensive talent a chance, the quarterback has to be effective, has to be he has to be playing well in order for the team to do well. You can have a great running back, you can have a great defense. At some point, your quarterback is going to have to make plays. We actually saw that kind of negatively on Brock Purdy last year, where in the fourth quarter of multiple games down, Brock Purdy couldn't make that gotta have it play. The year prior, he was making more of those plays. So which version of him we're going to get this year, I'm not sure. But if the 49ers are going to be successful, and I'm optimistic and think they will be, Brock Purdy needs to be playing like a top 10, player on this team. After him, I have Deommodore Lenoir. Obviously his play on the field, but I also would say his leadership is underrated. He's always on social media building up his teammates. I think in the locker room he's been said to, really be talking up his teammates. He'll also kind of instigate things with other teams, which I kind of like. I think he has this mindset where he has a ton of self-belief and projects a ton of belief in his team and in his teammates, which I think is really important. So I think Lenoir is also like underrated, a good leader, not only just him on the field. After that, I have Juwan Jennings. I think Jennings, has shown in the biggest moments that he's going to play better. He's going to rise to the occasion. He's not going to shrink. There's some guys, when the bright lights come on, you can't count on them. Jennings is the opposite. If it's fourth down, if it's third down, third and Juwan, if it's third down, you're going to throw to Juwan. If it's the Super Bowl and your star wide receivers aren't showing up for some reason, or they're hurt or whatever, you can all of a sudden just start targeting Juwan, and he's stayed ready, even though he's not maybe used to that production. He's always ready and always ready to prove himself. I know Kyle and Brock have both giggled about how he kind of blacks out when he comes to games and he's just ready to perform at the top of his level. I think Juwan is underrated. He's a great number 2. They're going to need an excellent wide receiver, and they're going to need Juwan to be healthy and open, especially when other, defensive backs are covering other players because they're kind of overlooking him. He can really bite you. I think that's really important. After that, and this is going to be difficult because he's injured, but I had Malik Mustafa. I just thought and maybe it's too early. I know he's only had 1 year, but I felt like he made such an impact. The 49ers, they move off of Hufanga. They're going to need Malik Mustafa to come back and be a top 10 player. So I had Malik Mustafa there. I really liked his attitude, especially losing Dre Greenlaw. You kind of don't have that guy who's like pushing the line. And you saw a little bit of that in Malik Mustafa, which I liked. You want to have one of those guys on your defense. So I felt like with the loss of Dre Greenlaw, you need to see Malik Mustafa being that line stepper.
So Chase, you had Brock at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Chase, you had Brock at 4?
I had Brock at 5.
5. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here's my list. You guys both had Warner at 1. I'm going to go with Kittle at 1. And the only reason I'm trying to, it's hard. They're both future Hall of Famers. To me, Kittle has no weaknesses. And he's actually almost held back. Like, imagine if he got to play with Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes. He's played Brock's good, but I think his numbers could be even greater if he had another quarterback or a play caller who was more committed to calling plays for him. So
that's his whole career too.
Yeah. He has no weaknesses. And then with Fred's great too, but like he's way better in coverage than he is against the run. And I think he really benefited from Dre Greenlaw. But I don't want to say anything too disparaging against Fred because he's a great player as well. So those are my 1 and 2 in that order. And it's almost 1A, 1B really, but I'm going to go Kittle 1, Warner 2. I'm going to go Bosa 3 just because I feel like Trent's getting a little old. I feel like Trent doesn't even practice anymore. Bosa should be able to get the best of Trent in ways that he couldn't 3-4 years ago. Even though I feel like Bosa isn't quite the player he was before he signed his contract, the numbers still say he's like a good pass rusher, like his pass rush win rate. It's all very high. So he's in his prime. He is what he is. He kind of is a little bit of a freelancer when it comes to rushing the quarterback. I don't even know if they know which side he's going to like line up on. He just kind of decides I'm going the right side this time and everyone else reacts. But yeah, 3rd, Trent 4th. Like with Trent, the question is him, like, does he still want to play football? And even if he doesn't want to play football, he's still like the 4th best player. Even if he's completely disinterested, he's still one of the best players in the league, which makes him kind of incredible. Question is how many games will he play? But when he's out there, he's going to be elite, borderline. So I think we can all kind of agree on the top 4. I think it gets subjective after that. So
really quick.
Yeah.
I feel like both of you had Nick Bosa a position higher than I had him. And I almost feel like you've changed my mind with how you talked about him and Trent. Nick Bosa's 27. He actually can still be on the ascension. Like,
oh, yeah.
I think we think of him, or I think of him as a little bit older because he's been good for so long and he's gone through major injuries in the past. But actually, like, if he has good health, he can play for many more years and only get better, especially if the talent around him gets better. Where even if Trent is healthy, there's nothing against him. He's on the, decline of his career just based on his age. So that's kind of
like what Grant said about Kittle too. Like Bosa's never had an elite edge rusher opposite of him throughout his career. And so he's the one who's getting double teamed and chipped and hit a lot.
Yeah.
Yet still very good production.
Okay, number 5. And again, I'm not putting too much weight on what someone did in 2023. I'm thinking about what they did last year and what I think they're going to do this year. So this is subjective. But number 5, Dominic Pooney.
Okay.
Dominic Pooney. I think
I had
Dominic
him higher on my list originally.
He was the 6th highest graded guard in football last year, according to Pro Football Focus.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen so many rookies have sophomore slumps, and he's only done it once. But I think he's a hell of a player, and I think if he continues on this track, he'll be a foundational player that they'll have to re-sign. I mean, you can't let this guy go. He's really good. Dominic Puni, number 5.
All the offensive line experts nerded out at his film last year, and we saw it too. I mean, pull blocks, getting out in space, athleticism, pass blocking. He helped out Jake Brendel, who really struggled at center a lot. Brendel was lucky to have Puni to his right.
He helped out McKivitz too.
Yeah, that too.
Okay. Yep. He's going to be a Pro Bowler this year. That's my prediction. Number 6. This is going to really piss people. No, I don't know. Again, this is no shade on anyone else. I think this young player is really good. Renardo Green. Renardo Green had 12 PBUs last year. He played like 60% of the snaps. Lenore's great too, but this guy's bigger. He's, I don't know if he's faster, but I think he's got more potential. And I think he actually was playing at a higher level than Lenore down the stretch. Lenore, as good as he is still 5'10" and can get mossed. This guy is more built like Travarius Ward. So I would put him at 6. I would put Lenore at 7. I think those two corners are really freaking good. I think the Niners have no shade on anyone else. I think those corners are really good and would be good on any system, any team. It's not like just in a zone system or just with Robert Saleh. Those are really good starting cornerbacks. Number 8, I have Juwan Jennings. I think Juwan Jennings is like what he did last year was Brandon Ayuk in 2022. Yeah, he gets schemed open, but he was the 15th highest graded wide receiver of football last year. He's tough. He blocks. He's one of the best contested catch guys in the league. And again, I think he could produce on any team the way he produces. He's just not fast. But yeah, he's in his prime. And then 9, I would put Purdy. And I would put him at 9 just because, like, right in the Juwan Jennings. I think him and Juwan Jennings are like kind of similar. 7th round picks. Like, their weaknesses are so apparent. And yet they've found what their premium competitors, their leaders. They're off the charts in all the intangibles, but they're always going to be held back a little bit by their own weaknesses. So with Purdy, I think we saw those last year. When you take Christian McCaffrey out of the equation, his production is very Jimmy Garoppolo-esque. The way they get to the production is different. They're different players, but at the end of the day, like, his numbers last year were almost exactly Jimmy G's numbers from 2021. And I'm starting to look back at Brock's 2023 season as maybe the outlier. Like, maybe all that happened Brock's 2023, Ayuk's 2023. Maybe that's because freaking Christian McCaffrey was the best player of football that year, and the Niners haven't had a guy like that. Maybe I'm overreacting. I haven't even put Christian McCaffrey on my top 10 list yet, and I'm not going to. Number 10, I'm putting Ricky Pearsall. I think that dude is the most explosive player on the offense right now and is going to be their leader in receiving yards this year. I'm not putting Christian on the list because I think he's washed, and I could be wrong. But he took his time coming back last year. He was cautious. He was safe, and he was bad. 4 yards a carry, five missed tackles forced. He didn't reach 18 miles an hour in a single game. I mean, maybe having a full offseason this year will change that, or maybe he's just old. I don't have high hopes for Christian McCaffrey. I think a lot of times when running backs fall off, they fall off quick, and it's they don't get it back. So that's my list. I hope I'm wrong for the sake of the Niners, because that's pretty bleak.
Man,
is this more of like a projection list?
Yes.
Because I like the idea that Ricky is going to be so important.
He hasn't proven it, but I think he's going to have a big year. I do.
Okay.
Ended the season very strong. The Detroit game, he was really good, and
he's better
had
than
over
Jennings
100 receiving yards. The contested catch against Brian Branch, who's one of the top DBs in the game, was impressive. And then Week 18, his numbers weren't as good, but against the Cardinals, he had another really tough.
Josh Dobbs
for a touchdown. No, I know.
Yeah,
but I'm saying the contested catches that he had the last couple weeks for touchdowns were like really impressive plays that are not easy. And we see receivers drop those passes all the time. And so the pop plays, the explosive plays that Pearsall had last year, I think about the end around for 40 against the Cowboys, what he did against Detroit, what he did against Arizona.
Ayuk couldn't have done that. The end around for 40. Ayuk's not that explosive. He's more explosive than Ayuk. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I like Ricky Pearsall.
The short area quickness and burst with like the route running and the footwork backs up that explosiveness, I think. And also the 2023 Niners team, it's going to be one of the best teams that never won a Super Bowl that should have. Debo was over 1,000 all-purpose. A lot of people don't realize that. McCaffrey went over 2,000 all-purpose. Kittle was a first-team All-Pro, over 1,000 receiving yards, and Ayuk was over 1,000 receiving yards too. And McCaffrey and Purdy were both top 5.
Do you guys remember this? Like before the Niners lost that Super Bowl, people were talking like, "Is this the best Niners team of all time?
Yeah.
Is it? Are they better than the '94 Niners? Like
'94 and stuff."
Yeah.
But that was the bar that they set for themselves, and that's why the Eagles eviscerating that Chiefs team in the Super Bowl was so devastating to the Niners. I think because the Niners should have been able to do that to the Chiefs as well. The Chiefs were not that good.
It bothers me when fans are like, the officials kept the Niners from winning that game. It's like, okay, think about what happened in that game. They were going to score on the first drive. McCaffrey fumbled.
Yep.
They had a blocked extra point. They had a muffed punt. They didn't block Chris Jones on the biggest play of the game. And that's like only 4 of the mishaps that they had in a game that is decided on the margins in the Super Bowl against Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs. You can't shoot yourselves in the foot that many times. And when you do, oftentimes you always lose.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Wait,
let's
really
just. Oh, go ahead.
Something that I liked, a point that you made while you were talking about your list, Grant. The Lenore, he would be good in any system. He's done great through multiple different D coordinators. That's
He's
underrated.
a really good player.
When we look
That's
at
why I put him above
go,
Jennings, because like I feel like sometimes the Niners' offensive weapons are like boosted by Kyle. Like he gets them open, he gives them opportunities to get yards after the catch, and they wouldn't necessarily get like the same production on other teams. But Lenore would do this on any team, and it's not like he's being boosted up by an incredible front seven.
Lawrence and Steve Wilkes, like it didn't matter. Everyone else, it's like, oh, okay. Even with Nick Bosa, it's like Robert Saleh is going to come back, and that's going to really help. But wow, how interesting! I didn't think how impressive it is that they've changed defensive coordinators 3 times now, and Lenore has stood out every single year.
But then when I think about like Lenore versus Jennings one-on-one, I feel like Jennings has the advantage just because he's 5 inches taller than Lenore. Like that's a tough matchup for Lenore. But I don't. Maybe that's not a way to rank them against each other.
Skill sets.
Yeah, I would take Jennings one-on-one in that matchup. As much as
I really like the Renardo Green pool. First of all, Saleh said he's one of the best players on the team. You mentioned he was 11th in pass breakups. He was top 25 in passes defended, which is a slightly different stat than pass breakups. And he put up those numbers despite only starting 7 games. So that's like 63% of the snaps for 2025. Yep.
12 pass breakups according to PFF and 63% of the snaps. Like this is a guy who could, I don't know. I mean, Charvarius Ward led the league in pass breakups in 2023. That seems like this guy's skill set.
Yeah.
So we'll see.